My name is Lauren, and I work as a nurse. My husband, Eric, is currently a full-time stay-at-home husband. Not long ago, Eric was working as a company employee, but he decided to quit his job because he didn't get along with his new boss. When Eric told me about his decision, I was quite angry that he quit without consulting me first. However, I tried to stay positive, thinking it might be better that he made the decision to leave before the job made him depressed. Although Eric doesn't bring in any earnings anymore, I have a steady job as a nurse. We are also fortunate to live in a house that my mother left to me when she passed away a few years ago. This means we don't have to worry about paying rent, which helps us make a good living without financial stress. Initially, I was very anxious and stressed about Eric not working. It felt strange and unsettling to be the sole breadwinner of the family. However, over time, I noticed that Eric was doing an excellent job with the housework. He took care of all the chores, cooked meals, and made sure everything was in order. Gradually, I got used to this new arrangement and even started to enjoy our life together more. One day, I came home from work to find my sister-in-law, Melissa, visiting our home. Eric greeted me cheerfully as I walked through the door. "Welcome home, honey. Hope you had a great day at work." "Oh, I think I forgot to tell you Melissa was coming over. I'm sorry I forgot to mention it." To be honest, I was a bit upset with Eric. He spoke as if he wasn't sorry about it at all. But then, I realized it had been a long time since I had seen Eric so cheerful and relaxed. "I see. It's totally fine. But from next time, could you please let me know in advance?" I replied, trying to stay calm. Eric smiled and agreed. He then turned to Melissa and suggested, "Maybe it's time for you to head home now." But Melissa didn't seem to agree. "Already? I don't want to go home yet. Since this house has enough space and room, I think I want to sleep over tonight," she said. I was taken aback by her response. It was unexpected and put me in a difficult position. I didn't want to be rude, but at the same time, I was hoping for a quiet evening after a long day at work. However, seeing Eric so happy and my sister-in-law being comfortable, I decided to go along with it for now. I smiled and said, "All right, Melissa, you can stay over tonight. But please, next time, let us plan it out a bit better." Melissa beamed with joy, and Eric looked relieved. We spent the evening together, and I tried to make the best of it, even though it wasn't what I had planned. I reminded myself that family is important, and making small sacrifices can lead to stronger bonds and happier moments. I looked at Eric's face, and in a panic, he told her, No, it's too sudden, Melissa. Please go home for today." When Eric said that, Melissa glared at me and went home angrily. "Why did Melissa come over today?" I asked. "It's quite a distance for her to come over." Actually, Melissa got a divorce recently. She has no place to go, so she went back to my parents' place. But their apartment is small, and they asked her to hurry up and find a job and give them money. She feels very unwelcome, and I feel sorry for her, Eric explained. I listened to my husband and got frustrated because I couldn't understand why he felt so sorry for her. Then Eric said, "I am sorry about today. I have been searching but couldn't get a job, and I wanted someone to listen to me for a change, so I let her in." I was angry at Eric for his selfish behavior but realized he needed this. I said, "Okay, it's true that it's better to have someone than being alone in that kind of situation. But next time, make sure you call me and have her leave before I get back, okay?" I wondered if I was spoiling Eric too much, but I made sure he knew to inform me next time, so I stopped talking about it further that day. 5 days later, Eric texted me while I was at work. "Hey, hope your day is going great at work. Melissa is saying that she wants to come over if that is okay with you. You're working until 8 p.m. today, right? I will make sure to have her leave before 8 p.m. It had only been 5 days since she last came over. Eric said he would make sure Melissa leaves before 8 p.m., but I worried about how long she planned to stay. I said, "Fine, make sure she leaves as soon as possible." I really didn't want Melissa to come over, but seeing Eric so happy about it, I agreed. I wanted Eric to enjoy his time with his sister, so I didn't think much about it. At work, it was such a busy day that I totally forgot Melissa was coming over. When I finally got home, she was still there. "Huh, why are you still here?" I asked, feeling a bit annoyed. Eric noticed my bad mood right away and panicked. "I'm so sorry. I've been asking Melissa for advice and lost track of time. Melissa will leave now." Eric turned to Melissa, and she sighed, saying, Yes, I will go home now." She started packing her things, acting annoyed, and then laughed. Her attitude really bothered me, so I said, "What's up with her? This isn't her house. Doesn't she have any sense?" Eric defended her, "You're saying too much. She came all the way here just to help me." I thought they could have met somewhere else, but I was too tired to argue. "You're right. Sorry I said too much. I'm just too tired today. I need to rest." Eric looked like he wanted to say more, but I was exhausted, so I went to bed without another word. The next day, I had day off and was relaxing at home. Eric came up to me and said, "About yesterday, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I wanted you and Melissa to get along, but it wasn't a good time." Since we hadn't talked much lately, I realized how much he wanted us to get along. "Oh, that's the reason. I've been so busy that I haven't made time for us. I did say too much yesterday. I'm sorry." Eric was happy we talked it out. "Okay, today I'll make your favorite dish, meatball pasta." He started cooking, and then his phone rang. "Who's calling?" I asked. "Oh, it's Melissa. I wonder why," he said. I had a bad feeling about it, but told him, maybe it's urgent. Eric checked with me and then picked up the phone. I couldn't hear what Melissa was saying, but the call ended quickly. "How is Melissa?" I asked. "She said she has something to tell me, so she's coming over now," Eric replied. I was irritated because I didn't want to see her on my day off, but since she was already on her way, I couldn't say anything about it. Eric tried to lighten the mood by continuing with dinner. As he cooked, I sat on the couch, feeling a mix of frustration and exhaustion. I had hoped for a quiet day off, but it seemed that wasn't going to happen. I sighed and decided to make the best of it. Melissa arrived shortly after, knocking on the door with an urgency that matched my bad feeling. Eric let her in, and she walked straight into the living room without much of a greeting. "I have something important to tell you both," Melissa said, her voice serious. I exchanged a glance with Eric, who looked just as puzzled as I felt. "What is it, Melissa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She took a deep breath and said, "I've been offered a job in another city, and I'm thinking of taking it. But I need a place to stay until I get things sorted out." My heart sank. The last thing I wanted was more disruptions in our already hectic lives. But before I could respond, Eric spoke up. "That's great news, Melissa. Congratulations on the job offer," he said, his face lighting up. "But where do you plan to stay?" Melissa looked at both of us with hopeful eyes. "I was hoping I could stay here, just for a little while. I promise it won't be long." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. We had just talked about needing more time for ourselves, and now this. But seeing the hopeful look on Melissa's face and Eric's supportive expression, I knew I couldn't outright refuse. "I understand your situation, Melissa," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But we need to set some ground rules if you're going to stay here. It can't be like last time. We need to know in advance when you'll be here, and you need to respect our space." Melissa nodded eagerly. "Of course, Lauren. I'll make sure to follow your rules. Thank you so much for understanding." Eric looked relieved, and I sighed, hoping we could manage this new arrangement without too much trouble. "All right, let's get through dinner first," I said. "Then we can talk more about the details." We sat down for the meal Eric had prepared, and the conversation was mostly light, though I couldn't shake the underlying tension. After dinner, we discussed Melissa's stay in more detail, setting clear boundaries and expectations. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a mix of worry and hope. I wanted to support Eric and Melissa, but I also needed to protect our space and sanity. It was going to be a delicate balance, and I hoped we could manage it without too much strain on our relationship. The days that followed were a test of patience and understanding. Melissa kept to her promise, respecting our space and giving us advance notice of her plans. Eric and I worked on communicating better, making sure to set aside time for just the two of us. In the end, it wasn't easy, but we managed to find a rhythm that worked for everyone. And though it took time and effort, the experience brought us closer together, teaching us the importance of balance and understanding in our relationships. "I'll make Melissa's pasta too," Eric said happily and started cooking. He didn't notice I was upset, and I couldn't understand why he didn't refuse her from coming over. But I thought this was my chance to tell her myself. After 15 minutes, the doorbell rang. Since our house was far from where Melissa was staying, I didn't expect her. But it was Melissa at the door with a big suitcase. I had a bad feeling about this, but let her in. Eric was still preparing lunch, so I asked Melissa, "What happened?" Melissa looked like she was crying and said, "Actually, I got kicked out from my parents' house. They kicked me out because I wasn't working. They said I have no right to stay there. They are such horrible parents, right?" My bad feelings were coming true as I listened. Then Eric said, "What the heck, that sucks. Family is about helping each other out. They are such horrible parents." I was annoyed by what Eric said, but since it wasn't my business, I kept my mouth shut and listened. Melissa said, "You see, I have nowhere to go, so I want you to let me live here." I didn't want Melissa to stay with us and tried to refuse, but before I could, Eric said, "Well, then there's no other choice but for you to stay with us. Luckily, we have a spare room, so stay with us from today." I glared at Eric and he said, "What's with that facial expression? Melissa needs help." I couldn't take it anymore and said, "What are you saying? Don't make this decision on your own. Eric, you're not working, and Melissa, you're not working either, right? I can't support two people on my salary alone." At that moment, something hit me on the head. I didn't know what happened, but then Melissa said, "Eric, don't throw an egg at her." She was laughing hysterically, and when I touched my hair, I felt eggshells. Eric said, "It's your fault, Jessica. Be nicer to Melissa. If you keep having this horrible attitude with Melissa, we're getting divorced. And if we get divorced, you know you'll have to leave this house, right?" Eric looked at me triumphantly, and Melissa looked at me with satisfaction. Since I kept quiet, they thought I was convinced by them. Melissa asked, "Jessica, are you ready to apologize to us? If so, then just go take a shower, and then we can eat the meatball pasta." I prepared to talk about how the three of us were going to live together. Eric happily finished preparing lunch while Melissa snickered at me and relaxed on the couch watching TV. I had something to say to both of them, but instead, I took Melissa's luggage and threw it off the balcony. They were shocked by my sudden action and yelled, "What are you doing? Are you out of your mind?" Eric panicked and told me to go get the stuff I threw out. I replied, "Why should I? This is my house. I won't allow you to do anything anymore." Eric said, "What are you saying? This is our house, as husband and wife, so it's my house too. I am letting my sister stay here." I scoffed and laughed, and he asked, "What's so funny?" I replied, "Don't you know that I'm the owner of this house? My mother gave it to me, so you have no right to it." Eric and Melissa looked surprised. They said, "For real? Oh no, that's not right. Even if that's the case, since we're still married, it doesn't really matter, you know." They started mumbling, so I said, "This house is mine. If you want to live with your sister so badly, why don't you rent a house and live with her? Besides, why should I support people who don't work at all? Eric, you worked hard until you quit your job, so I didn't say anything about it. But recently, you haven't been doing any housework either. Honestly, I'd rather live alone." When I told Eric what I had been thinking, he said, "Oh, really? So that's what you've been thinking about, huh? Well, I don't want a wife who doesn't take care of my family and can't even thank me for taking care of the house." As he said that, he took out divorce papers. I wondered how he had them prepared so quickly. My sister-in-law looked at me with a huge grin on her face, and I understood that she was the one who came up with this idea. "I've already written my part, so all you have to do is fill in your part," Eric said. "I'll give you some time to think alone. Since you don't have any other choice, just contact me when you want to apologize, all right?" After they said that, both Eric and Melissa left. I quickly took a shower, completed the divorce papers, and went to submit them. I think my husband showed me the divorce papers to scare and threaten me, even though it was Melissa's idea. "I've already written my part, so all you have to do is fill in your part," Eric said. "I'll give you some time to think alone. Since you don't have any other choice, just contact me when you want to apologize, all right?" After they said that, both Eric and Melissa left. I quickly took a shower, completed the divorce papers, and went to submit them. I think my husband showed me the divorce papers to scare and threaten me. Even though it was Melissa's idea, Eric went through with it. I don't want a husband who would do such a thing to his own wife. A few days later, Eric called and asked, "Are you ready to apologize?" I was really angry. "What are you calling about all of a sudden? Why should I contact you? You're just a stranger to me now." Eric sounded confused. "What do you mean, a stranger? Is there something wrong with your brain?" He didn't seem to understand the situation, so I decided to tell him clearly. "I submitted the divorce papers, and it's finalized. So you and I are strangers now. Oh, and I sold my house already, so even if you try to come back, there's no point. I also quit my job and am starting fresh somewhere else. I sent all your belongings to your parents, and they should be arriving soon. I'm worried if they'll all fit in their small place." Eric seemed clueless about what was happening and sounded like he was arguing with someone on his end. "Anyway, you're the one who suggested the divorce in the first place, right? I have nothing more to say to you. Since I want nothing to do with you, I'm blocking your number. Goodbye." My ex-husband yelled something, but it wasn't my concern. I hung up and blocked his number. A few months later, I happened to visit the area where I used to live. On my way home, I stopped by a supermarket. There, I saw someone who looked like my ex-husband, Eric, working. It seemed like he made a mistake at work, and a younger woman was scolding him. "Oh, how many times do I have to tell you to understand? Don't make me repeat myself," she said while other workers chuckled at the scene. I felt a bit bad for him seeing the situation. He was getting scolded by a much younger woman, and other workers were laughing at him. But there's nothing I can do about it because he's just a stranger to me now. As I watched him, I thought about how things might have been different. If Eric had thought more about how to handle his sister, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Melissa caused so many problems between us, and Eric just went along with it without considering how I felt. But in any case, I'm glad I divorced him. It wasn't an easy decision, but looking back, it was the right one. Now, I am enjoying my life being single. I have more peace and freedom. I don't have to deal with the stress of their constant drama. Since the divorce, I've had more time to focus on myself. I've started new hobbies, met new people, and even took up a new job that I love. I'm in control of my own life, and it feels great. Seeing Eric in that situation reminded me of how much I've grown. I don't have to worry about his problems or his sister's issues anymore. They are not my responsibility. I am free to live my life the way I want, without the constant stress and unhappiness that came with our marriage. So while I felt a bit bad for him in that moment, it quickly passed. I reminded myself that he made his choices, and I made mine. and my choice to leave was the best decision I could have made for my own happiness and well-being.